Hey, welcome back to the Real Estate Excellence Podcast. In Northeast Florida's competitive real estate market, only the best rise to the top. Today's guests are part of one of the most respected and high-performing teams in the region. With a deep passion for real estate, they've built a reputation for exceptional service, expert negotiation, and an unwavering commitment to their clients. One has over a decade of experience transitioning from a career in leadership, business development, and marketing into building a powerhouse real estate team. The other brings a background of business, home design, customer-focused sales, ensuring every client experience is nothing short of A-plus service with an A-plus attitude. Together, they dominate Northeast Florida market, helping buyers and sellers navigate every aspect of the home buying and selling process. Their expertise combined with their drive to exceed expectations has made them top producers and trusted advisors in the industry. Let's welcome the Lissa Slade team, Lissa Slade and Heather Lewis.
Hello. Hello.
ChatGPT did pretty good there, I think.
Yeah,
I like that,
love
actually.
it.
Yeah.
That described us perfectly.
I'm actually going to use that all the time now. It makes it easier and makes me look a little more sophisticated.
Yeah, right.
Ladies, welcome to the show. I'm glad to get you on, and hopefully our listeners are going to share a little bit of where you guys come from, because I think it's important. Real estate agents come from all over.
Mm-hmm.
We got a lot of teachers.
Yes.
We got some women who just were single moms and just had, hey, what do I do next to earn a living, and gotten into real estate and become very successful.
Yeah.
So I think it's very important in what your previous experience, your life experience, and how you've brought that to real estate and building, the relationships that are so very important. So, Lissa, kick us off a little bit. Tell us a little bit about young Lissa, where you grew up, and what was your initial aspirations? Because obviously it wasn't real estate.
So in 1986, I got on a Greyhound bus 2 weeks after graduating from high school. And I got off the bus in downtown Jacksonville, and my friend who had moved here 2 years prior picked me up, and I put my toes in the sand and I never went back. Didn't have a job, didn't have a plan,
Right.
Just came to Florida to figure it out.
So what are some of the initial things that you did?
So initially I worked at, oh my goodness, what was that restaurant in Jax Beach? I think it was Quincy's. I worked there very short, like maybe four or 5 months. Then I went to Regency Square and I worked at the Children's Place, and a manager at another store came in and bought some items and said, you should come work for me. So I went to work for her, and that was Vogue Body Shop. And I worked for them for 10 years, was one of their executive managers. That manager took me under her wing and said, you don't need to go to college. I had planned to try to figure out junior college or something at some point. Mm-hmm. But she took me under her wing and she said, you don't need to do that. You've got a gift of managing and, just come learn from me. So I was at Regency, then I went to the Landing, and I took that store, which at the time, the Landing was the thing.
Yep.
So to be promoted to an assistant manager in that store was a very big deal. And the manager that found me and started that whole process had been transferred as the head manager, and I went in as her assistant. Grew with Vogue Body Shop, ended up taking the Regency Body Shop, which was the #1 store in the company, following my time at the Landing. Mm-hmm. And that was just a wonderful time where I grew and blossomed and really learned managerial and marketing skills.
So when you look back now and what you're doing now, what are some of the things, I'm sure you reflect back on whether it was a training or interactions that you had, stuff that you pulled from those early days in retail?
So marketing and managing.
Yeah.
I fell into having an eye for things, and they recognized that, and before you knew it, they created this position for me. And when all the clothes would come in for, say, spring season, I would set the floor, they would come in and take the pictures, and the whole company at that time, I think there were 110 stores. But it wasn't just that. Vogue Body Shop was very competitive. You had the top store for the month, the top employees for the month. There was recognition going on all the time. That also became a big passion and blueprint for me, because to me, to make the leaderboard is important, and it has transferred over. Not always the most important thing, but it is important because it's recognizing your hard work.
So it sounds like they gave you a little bit of ownership to set the store up the way you felt was most effective.
Exactly.
Yeah. And obviously now you go into someone's listing,
Exactly.
you kind of take that same control.
Yeah, it definitely, I feel like, although I didn't have like a home background when I went into real estate and became interested in real estate in like, I think it was 2000, probably 2010, I got, my interest started to get,
Yeah.
I be,
The
began
market
a
was
process.
starting to recover a little bit.
Yes.
And, yeah.
Well, I was a mom at that point, and I knew somebody, and I was helping them very part time. And anyways, and I just was like, I could do this.
All right, so we're going to pause before we jump over here to Heather. Tell us about young Heather and getting started.
Okay, so I came to Jacksonville, Florida about 28 years ago. I'm from North Carolina. You can tell
Can't tell it all.
It's Statesville, right?
Yes.
Did they get affected by the hurricane at all,
I think it was more
a little further? Yeah,
Nashville.
you were far enough
far enough
east.
away,
Yeah.
So came here because I absolutely love the beach and had some family here, and went to work for Regency, which is hilarious. But I was an Estee Lauder girl, so makeup and perfume and all that kind of thing. But it really excelled on the sales board as well, and said, okay, so I'm pretty good at this, and stayed with them for a little while. Did some outside sales with hair products and that type of thing, and then landed with a To The Trade furniture store. So design, that type of thing for the clients. So I've always had like the interest in the design, the beauty.
How long were you with Estee Lauder and doing that kind of stuff?
I was with them probably for about 4 years.
Yeah, they do a lot of training.
Oh, a ton.
Yeah,
A ton.
and then the fact to be, that close up and personal with people, and they, as I've had a couple, you reminding me of a couple other guests that I've had on, and there's intense training that they put you through in product promotion, but really at it, like how to handle the personalities of the people that you're sitting there sometimes for whatever, an hour or two, doing them up, right?
I will say, like, out of all the cosmetic brands, we kind of had a joke that when the higher ups came in, they would run us around like crazy people. Like, I mean, they were very intense. So the training was great, and it prepared me for outside sales.
When you say upper, you just make me think, is it mostly women? I mean,
Yes.
So women pushing other women,
Yes.
or were
very
they
much.
really pushing you like a coach might push a player on the field or court, or more just a more draconian push? I'm curious to how the women treat the women, right? You know what I mean? Yeah.
Well,
Were they
I
a little
will
more
say there were some really nice account managers, and there were some that honestly were purposely intimidating.
Yeah.
Let's just leave it at that.
Yeah. They had to hold their place in the corporate structure.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Interesting. Okay. So, and then you moved into, I
I did. I said, okay, I'm good at sales, so I decided to go into outside sales. So I worked for a manufacturer distribution for hair products. So my clients were salons. So basically, I was going into salons selling, color, perms, equipment, that type of thing. So
staying still in the beauty industry, but outside. Same question I posed to Lissa, because I always find the curiosity, and again, you're out there in your day to day now doing real estate, but there's things that we compile over our life, right? These little learning lessons that sometimes, I'm sure, interactions with clients today reflect you back to the counter at Estee Lauder or outside sales. What are some of the things you learned about yourself that you've taken forward and built upon, and now?
Well, I think you have to see yourself as the expert. So, like, even if you're doing skincare with someone, there's just so many different lines. They're coming to you because you've been trained. You can look at their skin and tell this. Or for the salon owner, what's going to be your best retail product, and training them and making sure they know how to sell through product.
Right.
And then I went on to, like I said, To The Trade furniture store design. So a lot of designers would come in with their clients, or they'd send them in. So if they sent them in, then you're the expert, like trying to help them map out their room space, pick out their fabrics. You're seen as the expert because they don't do this every day.
Mm-hmm.
And how that translates to the home process is people don't buy and sell every day. So they're looking to us to be the experts to really guide them in the right direction.
Right. Your time at the furniture store, have you, obviously you must have had a little bit of a passion for it. You enjoyed it.
Yes.
And now you're going into a listing appointment and you're talking about staging
Yes.
or
It's huge.
rearranging. Yeah.
To me,
What are some of those things? Tell us some things you pulled from that you might apply today.
well, I mean, when I walk in a house, I'm almost a little bit overboard with, I want it to just look as perfect as it can look.
Mm-hmm.
Because when that buyer comes in, they want to see themselves living there. So if you have dirty windows, or it's too crowded and too many tchotchkes, or the paint color is obnoxious, you have to be bold enough to say, you might want to change this. You might want to think about doing this. And you do it tastefully and tactfully, of course. You don't want to offend your customer. But I feel like you really have to. And I feel like maybe some agents are a little afraid to approach it. But for me, I feel like I'm doing my client a disservice if I don't tell them, because it puts them in a bad position. If you have, hideously colored walls, how much is it really going to cost just to change it to a nice neutral palette? If you have,
we'd like to think the buyers can figure that out, but they don't, do they?
No, it's not that way. And if you have it like overcrowded and it makes the room look smaller or whatever, just removing a couple items. So I mean, it doesn't always have to be like this big giant thing. Or if you have like a beautiful view but all your windows are really dirty, then you're not getting to see that beautiful view. You're concentrating on the window looking dirty.
Right.
Which I don't think people consciously think, but that's where my mind goes.
Right. Well, because you're the expert, because you used the word bold in there. The agent has to become bold. And I'm going to ask you the same question, Lissa. At what point in your career did you come to that realization that you are the expert? Did you catch it early on, or is it something that it took you a couple years in real estate to become, you say, you know what? I am the expert. I've sold more houses than they have, that kind of thing. And say, I need to take a more bold approach, as you say. Did it come to you early, or is that something you had to build up and someday just like, I'm the person, I'm the expert? I mean, when did that happen?
I think it took a little while.
Yeah.
I was in real estate for a couple years, and I stepped back to help my husband launch his business, and then I came back into it. And I think you do have to have a little bit of time because you have all the contract stuff, which is a whole separate issue that you have to get like really comfortable knowing and discussing and going over with your client. So to become the expert, I think does take a little bit of time.
Yeah.
I mean, for each person, I'm sure it's different, but I didn't feel like I just stepped off my test and said, okay, here I am, I'm the expert.
Right.
I think your confidence grows as you sell properties.
Right. Lissa, same question there. When did you come to that point of, I am the expert in the room?
Slow as well.
Yeah.
I would say it was 2019, 2020. In the transition to Engel and Volker was definitely when I was like, okay, I'm different, and I know I'm different, and I have reached this new level, and it's time to elevate the level. And I would say for her, I've watched her for all those years, and I think for her, she came into that same very quickly once she came to Engel and Volker's. I really saw her in 2021 as an elevated, experienced professional that, I just can't say she's so wonderful. And I really feel like you came into it then. I'm just going to be bold and tell you when you did.
Bold's the word today.
Yeah. Yeah, but it was that process, and
Right.
I do feel like they brought something to taking us to that.
Right.
Would you agree with that?
I absolutely agree.
Do you think maybe if you went through it, or or agents in general, however you want to address the answer here, but we kind of get the imposter syndrome, right? And even though you've already had these transactions, you're like, but I'm still not good enough. Like a new agent say, I'm still not good enough as Lissa. So I'm not the expert in the room, and Lissa's not even here, but you get the imposter syndrome that you're just not good enough because you're measuring yourself to others. And therefore it may take away from you walking in there with a client who may be buying their first or selling their first home, and you don't think you're not taking control, but you are the expert. You know what I'm saying? Because I want to address it back. If you were talking to new agents today, because I imagine your business changed when you came in and were more, hey, this is what we need to do, take charge type of situation. If you were looking back in or instructing a new agent today, how would you help them get to that point earlier?
I think it's incredibly important to have mentors.
I was going to say the same thing.
Because, I mean, we've been friends for over 20 years, but I learn from her all the time, and vice versa. I believe in the mentoring process. Heather's known me from way back in the church days when I was on staff at Redeemer Church, and mentoring is a part of my framework. Everything I do involves mentors at every point in my life. So when I came to Keller Williams in 2014, Debbie Tufts took me under her wing. I watched her. I studied her. Cyan Goodwin, Lori LaRoe. I took a couple agents and said, I don't know that the imposter thing wasn't. I just watched and studied them. And I would ask them questions, and I would learn from how they carried themselves, how they walked into a room, watching them do listings and buyer appointments and things like that. I think mentoring is critical. As a new member or as a new agent, you should have a mentor in your life. I say that you should have a peer mentor and an adult mentor in every area of your life, professionally and personally, by the way.
Are you going to ditto that?
100%. Yeah, because honestly, like, you don't know. And if you, instead of comparing yourself and not feeling good enough,
that's right,
study the person.
Exactly.
Shadow someone who is successful in real estate, and then that gives you the confidence, you know.
All right, that brings us back to we're going to kind of do it into two parts, because I want to know. You said you started to kind of get a feel or an idea of real estate in about 2010, but you don't get started till 14. Right?
Yeah.
So what was it at that point? Did you meet somebody, or just what caught your fancy about real estate? And then obviously what led you to, go and get your license in 14?
So as I said, I was helping someone on, I would say on the side. I was an assistant pastor at the church, and interested. In 2013, I knew that something was coming at my family, and in 2014, I knew I had to pull up the pants, and I needed to be the breadwinner. So I went into real estate. All those years back, before I was at the church, when I was in retail, people would come in and say, "You should sell. You should go into real estate." Oh, I forgot. I worked at Adam at Harley Davidson for 5 years.
Yes.
And so
I knew I couldn't remember. I should have wrote that down.
That was a big piece, because we opened all those stores in those 3 years that I was there.
Yeah.
So, well, several of them, I should say. Anyhow, so I had to do that for my family, and I thought, oh, I can do this part-time, no problem. That wasn't how it worked out.
So your initial idea was to do it part-time.
Heck yeah. My kids were in high school. I'm going through a divorce. I wanted to be present for their high school years. Super important. There's nothing more important to me in my life than my children. And I thought I could do it part-time. Nope.
Did you quickly...
Oh, yeah.
It just quickly, the business picked up to a point. It's like, oh my God, I'm...
Well, yeah, the first 2 years were hard. I was on a team very briefly. I always wanted to be a part of a team. That was... Like, I knew that was going to be something.
You like the camaraderie.
Exactly. And that team didn't work out. And so I just began studying and working. And I wanted to get to that CAP experience at Keller Williams, because that's a big deal. And once I made it to that, I'm like, okay, next year I got to do it this more. And I just had little growth for those first 5 years at Keller Williams. Good growth. It was, I went 1 million to 2 million to 2.5 to 3.5 to 4.5.
What, because you guys were friends, so I imagine you started at Keller Williams as well. Yes. Initially, was because she was there.
Absolutely.
Is that okay? So what was, because you made the initial choice of Keller Williams, what was your reasoning? What led you to Keller Williams to be your first brokerage?
Training. And the person that I had worked with previously was there. So I knew Nancy. I had respect for Debbie Tufts. I really didn't know the rest of the leadership team, but I knew they had a good training program, and that was where I needed to be.
That's huge.
Yeah.
And I will forever be grateful for those years at Keller Williams. The team model wasn't what I wanted, and I felt like it was time to elevate and go to a company that had everybody was a full-time agent.
All right, so you guys have been doing it for enough years now. You see other agents out there. My personal belief, I've put out on the show numerous times, I think that initial brokerage is so important. We know 80% real estate agents fail, and a lot of them are probably within the first months. We don't find out for a couple of years because when they're renewed, they don't renew, they're out, right? If you were, girlfriend came to you today and said, "Hey, I'm looking to get into real estate," what were some of the things that you guys would tell them that they need to do before they go and sign up under that first brokerage to make sure they're getting with the right one?
I mean, I think training is huge.
Mm-hmm.
You do hear about some people who join a certain brokerage or whatever, and they just feel like they're on an island. They have no idea what they're doing. They have little support or direction. And so I can't speak to other brokerages, but Keller in particular, they are known for having an excellent training program. And so a new person should definitely find a brokerage that has training support right off the bat. And I think it's actually a good idea in the beginning to join a team and be surrounded by people who are experts in this field and learn from them, because then, too many people get frustrated because they don't have a closing or a listing or whatever, and they do walk away from it.
Well, that migration over from, working at the Harley Davidson or you were working with your husband, so you had some probably flexibility where you're always working, right? When you're self-employed, the light's always on. Where if you're coming from corporate America, or we've got a lot of former teachers and so forth, where there's a little more structure of their day, and the importance of, the team kind of leaning on you, like, hey, we're all going to be here at 9:00 and we're all going to, call together or whatever. How important is that to get a new agent going, to set that structure?
Critical, in my opinion. Accountability, structure, processes. I believe strongly you've got to be in the office. You're going to get more work done in the office. Collaboration, growing. It's super, super important.
Yeah, and the systems, like what she was saying too. If you don't have a CRM and if you're fishing around trying to figure out how to get it set up and that type of thing, just if you have your systems in place from joining a place like Keller Williams or joining a team within Keller Williams and get all that set up, then that's a huge chunk of the process.
And obviously they did a really good job, I felt like, at equipping us in the training. And then I feel like when you get to a certain point in your career as an advisor, you're going to find that place, which is what I found in 2020, that I'm like, I need more. And for the team piece, it was not where I wanted to go. The way that their teams, most of the time, I did not want that team. I wanted something a little more organic, a partnership, and a team. I wanted to have something like, there are a couple people I really respect. Lissa Barton team, I have tremendous respect for her. I think Gwen Volan does a great job with her team. There were people I was watching them grow a little bit ahead of me, or one of them was right at the same time as me. But it was important because you could tell they had structure. They were moving their team in a way that had growth, and you could see it.
Because, we lose that daily routine of coming into the office and hey, I'm going to be there at 9:00. Oh, I can do this. I can be late. I'm going to go do these little errands that, and maybe come in at 10 or 11 o'clock, but all of a sudden really half the day's gone already. And I think a lot of agents fall out because of that structure. You guys mentioned mentor before. So they're looking for a brokerage that obviously Keller Williams has a reputation. There's a couple others, especially for really green agents coming out licensed, no doubt for that reputation. But now the piece of finding the mentor, I think they should find it before. I think I think a lot of places have training, but I think the mentor, almost in my talking to almost 250 agents, the mentor piece can be huge, a huge accelerator to their business. To find that mentor. What are some ways a new agent might be listening right now, or an agent who might be like I said, just kind of trudging along, to say, you know what, I need to find a mentor to lift my business to another level? How would you suggest they look for those people?
Well, it's interesting. I haven't even told you yet. I have, sorry, we tell each other, we talk daily. Very rarely do we go a day where we don't see or talk to each other.
It was low on the priority list.
Sorry. I got a call from somebody yesterday who got her license, and she's like, I really need to understand what my next step is. And the first thing out of my mouth, and she goes, and I don't suppose I can come work with you, and which is a little bit of a conflict because we only hire agents that are doing a certain amount of volume.
Right.
Now you can come on a team, but it's going to have to be in an administrative
Corey's
role.
blessing.
Yeah, and Corey's blessing. And by the way, we've had a couple that we've brought in to do that for them, and it's been a little bumpy, but bumpy is always good because you learn.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, somebody called, and I my first response was mentoring and teaching. And she said, "How do I do that?" And I said, "Let's have coffee." And I'm going to encourage her to pick a brokerage. I've got a list that I use now. It's evolved a little bit in the last 3 years because of changes in the industry. But I'm going to do my best to help her, find her way.
Yeah. Was this someone who just has known you through other
church person?
Church person.
You're
okay.
gonna laugh when I tell you later who it is.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, she's known her just as long as I have. You used to homeschool with her.
Well,
Right.
and I do think too, like that piece of going into the office, like you say.
Yeah.
Not everyone's a fit for everyone else. So you go into the office, you start meeting people, and
That's
who
right.
do you connect with?
Exactly.
Who are you drawn to
Mhm.
that maybe is willing to mentor you?
That's
I
really
think that's
good.
huge.
And don't be bashful to ask. Obviously, this person wasn't.
No, she wasn't. Not
Yeah.
at all. And I respect that. And I've had other people call me and say, "I've got my license. What should I do next?" And I almost always have the same. It's almost a script at this point
Yeah.
because I believe in it so much, and I love to mentor. I mean, the more the merrier.
Well, you love to mentor people who are willing to accept.
Correct.
Yeah.
But I also have peer mentors. I mean, I adore Laura Bishop. She is an incredible professional, and we get on the phone and we talk through things. She doesn't work with us. She's at a different brokerage.
Yeah.
At a competing brokerage, but I respect her so much that I would consider her a peer mentor. We got our license within a year or two of each other.
Yeah. The first year.
Oh, my first.
Yeah.
Oh,
Let's
cool.
talk about. I'm gonna start with Lissa because she was first. Because Heather, I'm sure you leaned on Lissa immediately, but.
Do we have some stories?
Did you have someone initially right away? Right, you had this person that you had been talking to. You go to Keller Williams.
Yes.
Did you know enough to tag on or shadow?
So yes, Tracy, I came on. I wanted that, and I knew I wanted that. So I joined someone's team, and it just was not a right fit. And I knew it with, but I studied her for 4 months, but then I was like, this is not the right fit.
Just
for
the
me.
way she was just doing business.
She's a great agent. Just some other things. I had just come from being on staff at a church.
Right.
And I had just left my position and was going through a divorce, and it was not the right fit for me. She has had a great reputation, but it was not the right, just so many things.
Yeah. All right.
Let's just say that. And Mark Dilworth was very gracious. I went into his office and I said, I'm an ordained minister, and I just feel like this is not the right fit for me. And I did learn a lot from her in those 4 months, but I knew at that point, someday I'm gonna find a way to do a team. And from that day on, I grabbed the Lissa Slade Team. I started acting like a team. I got admin people around me. I did that little baby step.
You did that fairly early.
14 to 15.
You already been in the business for roughly a year.
I had a marketing person in late 15. I knew I needed to have a TC and all those admin people around me.
Was your production up to that level yet, or you just?
No, I was like 2.5, but it was real. I just hired someone part-time and, made it happen. Yeah, it was kind of crazy. I took a lot of risks back then that I would still take those risks.
All right, we're going to revisit that because I think the other big challenge that agents have is that breakthrough of that initial lid of when they get too busy by themselves.
Yeah, and I believe you have to spend money to make money, and that's been inside of me since I got my license. And so, back when I wasn't making enough money really to even live, I had people working with me to help me get there.
All right, Heather, you get started. You know her, at least. You walk in the office, you know somebody.
Right.
But what are some of the challenges that you had that first year? Some of the things maybe you had to overcome personally?
Okay, so personally, everything was fine.
Well, personally, when I ask the question personally, is, you're going into, well, because you were
Well,
working with, the intimidation, like you had to, like the whole, I think personally is you realizing you had to take charge when you're the expert real estate agent.
Right.
You're talking this, to me, that's a personal change.
Of course.
Yeah.
So it is funny. I was saying this earlier. You study. So many people don't pass their real estate exam the first time or the second or the third. It's just so much information. And then, your brain honestly feels like it's going to explode. And you take your test, pass it, go on. Well, then I joined Keller Williams. And I just thought, okay, I took my test. I'm a real estate agent. Here I go. And then I'm like, oh, there's all this training. You're setting up your CRM, your marketing, your da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da, and here's how you do a CMA. And I was just, it blows your mind. There's just so much to learn.
Yeah.
And so I don't know if I missed this class or what happened, but I ran into a lady outside of Marshall's, and I'm like, hey, how's it going? Da-da-da. Yeah, I'm in real estate now. And she's like, oh, we're thinking about putting our house on the market. It was in Nocatee. I was like, great, I'd love to come do a listing presentation for you. She's like, okay, great. So I'm like, Lisa, can you go with me? I've never done a listing presentation.
It's your first one. Yeah.
I'm nervous. Can you go make sure I say everything right and just be supportive or whatever? She's like, sure, swing by, pick me up. So I go to her house and she's like, okay, you have all your listing paperwork, right? And I looked at her like a deer in the headlights. And she's like, it was funny. And I didn't have a thing. I just had me. Just me. No paperwork. No nothing. And so she printed it out. We went and got the listing. So it was great. But it was just so funny, like how I thought I was so ready. And I knew everything. I had taken my test. I'd been through this training. But I really didn't have a clue. So it's like, you learn as you go. I
think you do. There's so many trainings offered. And I think, and there's some trainers that are obviously better than others. That's life. But sometimes they often miss, like, how do you put the rubber to the road? And it was maybe that training was like, hey, this is, listing appointment 101.
Right.
Have something in your hand, right?
Yes, it was more like, who do you know? Set up your
Besides a
CRM.
bottle of wine.
Yes,
yeah.
Exactly. Put everybody into your CRM. Like, all that kind of stuff is where I felt like the training was, and it was great. But like I said, either I missed that training on how to show up, what to have in your hand, or maybe I just ignored it. I have no idea, but it's funny now when you look back.
I think it just happened fast. I remember the situation pretty well. Yeah. I think it happened pretty early with her licensing, so she may have not had the class yet.
Yeah.
Could have been the other way, but it was quick. You got that. I remember going, oh my gosh, she's got a listing appointment already. That's awesome.
But whether you had the class or not, to have a mentor, someone that's done it a few times, prepared, made it a lot easier.
For sure.
We don't know whether you may or may not have gotten that, listing without her or anything, but having that mentor to give you that confidence. Yeah. Right. Someone that could finish your sentence should you fumble. I need to just take a pause here because I need to promote these. I've got a nice hot pink one in that bag for you down there. But promote Remy Graphics here if I can get it up in my camera. They do these laser engraved mugs for me for our guest here. It's got the show logo and Remy Graphics. They are local. They will do one-offs for you. So if you want to make, hey, John and Sally, welcome to, or put their new address, whatever you want to do. I think personalizing things like this so they never throw it away, type of thing. And you're always on their mind there. But RemyGraphics.com, they have many other laser engraved gifts. So thank you to them. So we're in that first year. So how did you, at the end of the first year, I imagine you can reflect back. I mean, did you feel it was successful for you? Obviously you continued with real estate, so there must have been something. But I mean, is there anything you look back now and say, I could have done that better?
I don't know. I mean,
that's an on-spot question.
It is. I do feel like there's just, like I said before, there's just so much information you're taking in. It's like drinking water from a fire hose.
Yeah.
And I do remember feeling like this is just so much. It seems so flippant. Oh, you go, I'm going to be a real estate agent. You go get your license, you sign up with a brokerage, and that's it. But there's so much more to it, especially if you want to be a really good agent.
Right.
So I don't know. I think for me it was just that was my process.
Well, Lisa, you remember mentoring her at this point, and I think what I guess the point I want to get across to the listeners is you probably helped her filter or prioritize what was more important than others.
I think a little bit, but she had a natural. Honestly, she was one of those better students, if you will, because she wanted it so bad. I mean, I'm thinking of that listing you had on 3rd Street, and I remember walking in and you were like painting walls. And it was her. It was like maybe her 4th or 5th listing. Am I right? It was. I mean, it was early on. It was that first year, and she'd gotten a lot of slack from some people in the office, and she was handling it like a champ. I mean, do you remember all that? And I was getting a little frustrated. I'm like, you don't need to be acting like that.
Slack or flack?
I'm sorry. Slack.
Flack. Yeah,
yes,
they were.
Did I say slack? Did I say slack? Oh,
You said
sorry.
so. Yeah, I was trying to. I kind of knew where you were going with it
call her Lisa
based on the
isms.
context, but
She always knows what I mean.
It is Lisa-isms for sure.
I know the word, but I get excited or I'm talking too fast. I'm working on that. I've been working on it. She helps me to work on it. I can remember her. I remember walking in and she was painting walls. You were staging that house by yourself because at that time it was also new to you. You were just making it. She just made it happen.
Yeah.
And everybody in the office was like, "You're never going to sell that listing." And I was
too overpriced.
It's overpriced.
Yeah.
And she was like busting.
Well, I had suggested that they paint because it was just a little ranch brick home at the beach, and it just felt really dark. Well, the wife started and then didn't want to finish, so I went. My husband said, "You're crazy. You are absolutely crazy." But we sold that house for like $400, and they turned around and bought another house for $7. So I just sold 1.1.
Yeah.
Because I wanted to sell it, and I wanted it to look right.
Can I say something? Yes. You added value.
Yes.
And that is all. That as a new agent, you've got to learn to add value to every single situation.
I agree.
That is a key component to being an exceptional agent, in my opinion.
That's true, because anybody can walk in with their listing paperwork if they remember to bring it. But what are you going to do that's different, that's going to make you stand out, and that's really going to prioritize and make your client feel like they're everything?
Yeah. Yeah.
And to get their household for the most money possible.
I was cutting a reel a few days ago. Bailey Burnside down at the St. Augustine, Keller Williams, and she was talking about finding that thing to wow the customer. And you've got to. Sometimes you have to look for it, but oftentimes, going back to the take charge, you took charge of that. I don't know if the people in the office motivated you by saying you couldn't sell it for that much, but you took charge. It's like, hey. I want to, the faster I could sell it, the faster you can get paid. Right. You can go stick a sign in the yard and sit back and wait, or you can actually do something that hopefully moves it a little quicker.
Yeah, and both of us are really huge on urgency.
Yeah.
Like
Big time.
You don't diddle daddle. You get it done. And I think that if you want to talk to a new agent, get it done. Don't wait for someone to tell you this, that, and the other, and like just stick a sign in the yard and wait for it to happen. Be proactive. Well,
that goes in. So when you're going out on these listing appointments, some are better than others. Some houses are probably just perfect. Others need painting or whatever. How important is to have, whether it's those service people on the Rolodex or you doing it yourself sometimes, to help them get the house a little clean up, just decluttered. Maybe they got to move some things out into storage or something, to take charge of that situation, to, again, have that sense of urgency.
Right, because you think about this is like exciting for them, but it's also stressful. They don't move every year.
And they don't know what to do.
Yeah.
They don't know what people are
looking
looking
for. And you say you need to do this, and this. And, okay, you can tell them, but how about, I know someone who can come pick up this junk for you. I know someone, I've had someone organize, a professional organizer come in and organize someone's home just because there was so much.
Right.
And to have those resources. Okay, I'm going to call so-and-so, they can come do this for you.
Yeah.
I think it's huge, and it's like adding the value.
I mean, as consumers, and they don't even, they're hiring you for this, they're hiring you for that kind of expertise. They're hiring for the things they don't know are out there who can help them. You need to come in as a resource.
Right.
Yeah. All right. I'm trying to structure a book right now, and the underlying thing if you've listened to some of my recent episodes, I've been talking about it. Grit by Angela Duckworth. I don't know if you've read it. Yeah. So I think, talking to a lot of real estate agents, I mean, some have come from like nothing. I mean, we talked about some single moms. I think of Sarah Rocco, when she was in the middle of divorce when she got into real estate. I remember her telling that story. And there's been many others. But there comes times in your business where you get punched in the gut sometimes, or you fall on your face, whatever analogy you want to use. But sometimes you look back and go, today you probably laugh about it. So I have my LLC of the Grit and Real Estate Agent, and that's love, laughter, and consistency.
Love it.
All right. So I'm going to ask you why you love selling real estate and give you but I want you to, the laughter part sometimes catches some of my guests off a little bit, because that comes from my life experience of, we've done it enough times. We've overcome obstacles that now sometimes when someone does throw you a curveball, you go, oh my God. And then you laugh about it because you're like, I've done this. I've sold so many houses. Whatever in life, you've overcome greater obstacles, and you laugh through it. So if you have a little story there, something recently that sets you back, but then you're like, no problem, I got this, and step forward. And then obviously what you're doing consistently in your business. So Lissa, why do you love real estate?
Does it have to be one? Because there's no way I could just say there's one reason. I think my
as long as you don't go on for 10 minutes.
Sorry. I think my love for the relationships that bring me in to list or buy, my love for them and wanting to do a good job, not a good job, a great job, and have them be lifelong customers, that's what I love. And truly, that's my business. My business has always been referrals. I haven't paid for a lead ever, not once. And that's what I love. I love when they come back. Lots and lots of my customers are on 7 or 8 or 9 transactions. One of my customers from 2020 has sent me over 15 referrals.
Wow.
So that is what I love, is that satisfaction of knowing I'm their go-to. The Lissa Slade Team is the go-to for those people after their experience with us. That's what I would say I love most about real estate.
And that's your aspiration with every new customer is to win that lifelong. At what point in your career did that mindset come in that I've got this person in front of me right now, and I need to make them that billboard on 95 for the rest of my real estate career? How do I win this person? Wow, this person. When did you come to that realization?
I can tell you exactly when it happened. I was sitting at a table with Sarah Rocco, and we were at that Keller Williams event that, what is their Bold week.
Right.
And we were both pretty new in the business at the time, and had the similar stories. And I remember it clicked. It was at that meeting, and it was a week that you had to do that. Yeah, I was like, okay. I had already started it, but it went to a new level. And shortly after, a couple years later, I made my change.
Yeah. Heather, why do you love real estate?
Well, I'm going to add on to what she said. I mean, it was such a good answer.
But it's who we are, too.
Yeah.
But I will say, the way I treat my clients, I think having a customer service background, sales, it's just kind of intrinsic within me. I want to do a good job. I want everyone to leave the table happy. But I will say, I think one area that I don't want to say failed, but maybe didn't do as nice of a job as I could have, and for new agents, is really taking those clients and having them shout from the rooftop what a great job I did, and having cultivate that relationship. I kind of, assumed that they would remember me, and there's a lot of agents I think that do that. And it's like, if you're not constantly contacting, they do forget about you. Because I can't tell you how many people I've worked with, and I was like, well, who sold you the house? Oh, I don't remember. They don't remember you. And so I think that was one of my weaknesses on the onset. Now I'm all over it. Yeah. But in the beginning, I think I was maybe a little bit shy to keep reaching out.
asking them for reviews and things like that.
Yeah, do they like me or not? You know, I always got to, like, it's like the dating thing. Do they like me? Do they not? Can I ask or not? You know, you go back and forth. But I think you guys have probably created that attitude now. It's, I'm going to wow them, as we talked about before. There's no reason for them not to like me. Right? All right. Laughter. Lissa, what is something that's kind of just sets you back, and it doesn't necessarily have to be recently, but just something that just kind of hits you back and you're like, oh my God, I got to handle this again. But because of your experience, you've done it before. You just laughed through it and pressed on.
I have to work on that one. I'm going to be honest with you.
I'm going to tell you.
Okay.
All right.
I think it's having clients who won't listen to you.
Oh, yeah.
And you are
that frustrates her?
We're the expert.
Thank you. So, see, she knows me so
much.
I couldn't have.
And you almost have to kind of laugh because, you know, some clients, and like I said, they don't do it every day. Sometimes they feel like they know better than you, and God bless them, you know.
She's so nice.
Well, they saw it on the internet, so they must know more.
Right. So it can get frustrating when you're trying to get good, solid advice.
Yeah.
To, you know, get the best deal or to get their house sold at the most money, and it's just constant pushback. And you always have to laugh because you're like, okay, I do this every day.
Yeah.
We see what's out there. We know the comps. Like, just listen to us. We do have some good advice.
That was a good catch. Thank you.
Yeah.
So what do you do now? I mean, because it's not the first time. I mean, this happens every whatever amount of customers.
Yeah.
Just statistically, there's that person that knows more than you.
Yep.
And how do you handle it now?
I think that's evolving all the time because we're always thinking about how do we have to manage this? Do we need to? I love the team because sometimes good cop, bad cop. I mean, you know, it helps to have somebody come in alongside you and say, "Hey," but it's always evolving. I don't know that I have a great answer for that because all we can do is our best and give the information. I recently had to say to someone, look, this is what's happening in the market. These are the facts. Let me know what you want to do. And they met me halfway, and I was happy. How
do you guys play off the good cop, bad cop sometimes? Or
are good. Like, it's just, I think one great thing about having a team is, you know how we're like kind of finishing each other's sentences and that type of thing. Sometimes people don't want just to believe you, but if they have someone else
that's my
version, a good communicator,
a third party verification,
and even state it just in a little bit of a different way, whatever. I think they're like, oh, okay, I get it that way because you know we all hear things differently, right?
We do, and sometimes personalities might start to clash.
Yes.
You know, most of our business is relational people we know, but you know, you get that referral because you sold the house next door and you don't know the person, and that you don't have a background. So when I say good cop, bad cop, I mean more like
well, you need. I learned that early in sales. I was in telecommunications 25 years ago, and you know we'd be at when they were handing out cell phones, right? They wanted everyone to have a cell phone, so we'd be at these county fairs and so forth at tables, just handing out cell phones and activating them, and to have that, you would sit there and talk to somebody, but you would not get the feeling, or you just didn't feel comfortable closing to the point where it's like yes or no, leave me, but they're still standing there in front of you. So sometimes you need to step away and let that other person come in and say, hey, are you ready to move forward? And they're like, oh, yeah, we're ready to go. You know, they don't want to, for whatever reason. We always called it the TO, turnover.
Oh, that's
turn it over to...
we'll borrow that.
Turn it over to someone else to just, like you said, say something differently. And it might be so minor, or just simply just saying, hey, do you have any more questions? No. Okay. Are you ready to go? Okay, great. Sometimes it's as simple as that. Right. Yeah. Type of thing. Heather, what has set you back? It really kind of gut checked you that you then stood up and said, you know what, I've done this, and moved forward.
Okay, tell me. I told you, now you have to tell me.
Okay.
I don't know. For me, maybe.
Have you ever had that moment though where you're like, is real estate really for me?
Of course. I think everybody has.
Yeah.
Because there's good and bad, and you have great experiences, and you have maybe not so great experiences. For me.
Tell us about one of those. That's kind of what I'm talking. Yeah.
I got it. Your first year, you were frustrated when you came back. That
Oh, yeah,
first
yeah,
year,
yeah,
she
yeah.
was pretty frustrated. But she also was she wanted to get back in. She knew she had, missed some things over the 2 years she was gone. I mean, we went through COVID, so COVID changed everything in the
Right.
industry. But that first year, you were willing, and we know that it ended up working out wonderfully.
Right.
She kind of just acted like an assistant and relearned everything. Not as an assistant per se, but she would do all the listings. She put everything in. And at that point, we had 3 people on the team, and
You have to start swinging the bat again.
She started swinging the bat, but she was frustrated a little bit. She's like, "Oh my gosh!" And that other person and I were having good, and you were a little frustrated.
Yeah,
but
because there's always the comparison.
Yeah.
No matter how good.
Why
you
is it
are,
happening for them
there's
and not
always
me?
A ton of people who are way better. So.
But you pushed through
I
that. You pushed through that, and the next year you had that $5 million sale. So come on.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I do think one great thing too about whether you have a team or a mentor or whatever is just if I'm feeling a little bit down, she can pull me up, and vice versa. And if one of us are having a challenge, then the other one can like talk them through it or whatever. I think it's just so awesome to have that banter back and forth.
Well, and that's what it goes back to, the grit. To me, that's grit. That the fact you persevered, you came back, and even though you got frustrated, and what you said, no, I'm going to do this, and you kept pressing on and got up the next day. That's the important. All right, I want different answers here on this. What are you doing today? And like I said, it may be evolving. I think it's always evolving because the markets change. What do you think you're doing today consistently? What is important to you on maybe if it's daily or weekly or monthly, but something you're doing consistently? Do you think helps you move your business is a positive impact?
For me, I know it's organization. 100% organization, daily, weekly. I'm a time block girl, and it's super important to me that everything's planned out and organized. So I think
we love her for that.
She doesn't like me sometimes for that. But organization, with the changes that have happened and where between late 2023 and 2024, you've got to have an organizational system. And if you don't, I wonder what will happen, because that organizational system can make or break a business. And I mean, I'm talking drop-bys, I'm talking about contacts, I'm talking about touches, I'm talking about coffees, I'm talking about all of that. Phone calls. If
you can get lucky and trudge through the business.
You can get real lucky.
And make a decent living and say, hey, I'm doing it. But what you're doing, I believe, takes you to another level. You can really move the business if you're really that time blocking, making sure you're not skipping a lot of those things, because I think a lot of agents, and you guys tell me would you think this is accurate or not. I think a lot of agents only think 30 to 60, maybe 90 days in advance.
So I'm glad you brought that up. Growing is really important to me. And I know a lot of people don't like that word goals. Maybe I use both words, but every year we should be taking some risks.